Cliff, I mean, on one hand, I'm a business reporter, right? So I would like to point out the fact that when American businesses decided to do the right thing, they're starting to have an impact. But they didn't really decide to do the right thing in time. They were warned of these anti-democratic things. Delta and others, made statements that sounded like it's okay. They fixed some of these laws. They're not as bad as they were. Only now have they come out and called these laws what they are and decided to take action.
Right. And, we here in the coalition that have been pushing for this, we like to think that it's never too late to do the right thing. And so, but what we need them to do is to match their strong words and their strong statements, late statements, but still strong statements. We need them to match it now with strong actions. We need them to match it now with doing in other states that Georgia is in solidarity with, like Texas, as you mentioned, where I was earlier this week, like Michigan, like Arizona. We need them to step in and do in those states what they failed to do in their home state of Georgia. We need them to also step up and support voting rights legislation like H.R. 1 and H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and as well as the For the People Act. We need them to step up. And so there are things that they can do. They can actually step up and call for the repeal of the law that was just passed here in Georgia, because there's never been a law that's been passed that can't be unpassed. We just repealed the law here in the state of Georgia. There was the citizens arrest law, which was used in the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, which many people know about. So it can still be undone. So that's what we're asking these companies to do. It was through our pressure that they stepped up, but now we need some action.
Professor Smith, let's talk about this. Obviously, pulling the All-Star game is a big deal that's actually going to affect some people negatively in Georgia, particularly some struggling businesses. But we've seen this before. We've seen, first of all, the players putting pressure on the league to do this. And we've also seen places where short-term pain is worth long-term gain. But it certainly gets tricky when you start talking about sports.
It does, right? We did see this in Charlotte in 2017 when the legislation passed a transgender bathroom bill, and the NBA All-Star Game said, we don't want to be associated with a state that is going to pass legislation that might be less inclusive. And so I think it is going to hurt some companies, especially the companies that are in and around the Battery, which is the complex where the Truist Stadium is. I feel bad for these companies, but sometimes you have to take a little bit of pain in order to do the right thing. And I think the right thing is for the Major League Baseball to protect their brand, for them to back away and say, look, we don't want to be associated with a state that's going to put for lack of a better term, a black mark on our brand, on what Major League Baseball should stand for. I think it's also incredibly ironic that at the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, they were going to do a very nice contribution to Hank Aaron because he just passed away this past year. And so it's, Major League Baseball has no choice. Like, they got to say, look, we can't, say, look, let's honor Hank Aaron while we're in a state that is not honoring, let's say the votes of African Americans.
Cliff, let's talk about. I'm a little surprised at the lack of sophistication that came out of the governor of Georgia, who, by the way, is in the process of getting canceled by Donald Trump and his crowd. But they've both come out. The former president has come out with a statement as well tonight, and they're all carrying on about woke culture and cancel culture. At some point, the arc of history is pointing in a particular direction, and Georgia Republicans and a lot of Republicans in state legislators around this country are on the wrong side of that piece of history. I'm not sure the anti-woke cancel culture argument is strong enough to withstand a movement of people who are trying to get civil rights applied fairly.
No, it's definitely not strong enough to withstand that. Just like the voter suppression that we saw in 2018 was not enough to stop the wave that we saw in 2020. At the end of the day, the Governor Kemp, he's been saying things like knee-jerk reactions. At the end of the day, the facts remain. The only thing that's being canceled in this situation is that they're canceling voter access. They're canceling days of early voting. They're canceling locations where you can return drop boxes. Yes, they are canceling days of early voting in spite of some of the stories that have been put out through Kemp statements and even some journalists that have wrongly reported. There's actually a reduction on days of early voting, particularly when you look at runoff elections here in the state of Georgia. So the only thing that's being canceled is the access to voting. But at the end of the day, we're confident, just as we were able to out-organize them in 2020, we're going to out-organize them now. We're going to get this law repealed. We're going to expand voting rights all across this country. They can't stand in the way of the wave of history.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.